Hi, and welcome to another episode of Main Character the Podcast. I'm your host, Alexandra Salmon, and today I'm joined by two very special guests, Colombosian and Myles Couyoumjian. Welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you for being here. So, Myles and Karen and I work together at the David Green Group at Coldwell Banker Realty, and most people know them as the top dogs in the Navy Yard in terms of Boston real estate, but a lot of people don't know. They're part of a very storied, multi-generational entrepreneurial family. If you grew up around here, you've probably heard of Colombo Yogurt, and it was started by Karen's grandparents, Myles' great-grandparents. Yep. So they came here from Armenia?
Yes, they did. They were here in around 1915 at the start of the Armenian genocide against the Turks.
Okay, that's what brought them here?
Mm-hmm. They settled in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and after a short time they realized that they wanted to be in Andover, and they bought a farm called the Wild Rose Farm, and they started a yogurt business called Wild Rose Creamery initially. That was changed to Colombo and Sons Creamery, and then Colombo Yogurt Incorporated.
How old were they when they came here?
They were in their 30s.
Okay.
And they lived on a farm, and they had horses, cows, pigs, chickens. You know, most of the people that came over at that time were farmers. And my grandfather and grandmother realized they had this cow named Bessie that was producing an incredible amount of milk. And it was during the Depression, and they needed to find a way to provide for their family. So my grandmother would make yogurt on her stove with the extra milk that they would have. And her friends and family all said she made the best yogurt. And eventually she said to her husband, Sarkis, why don't we bottle it and sell it to the ethnic communities around the Andover area? So they started, they're the first commercially produced yogurt in America. It was founded in 1929 by my grandparents, Rose and Sarkis Colombosian. I'm very proud of what they did. With the extra milk, my grandfather would bottle the milk, and he would deliver it to Watertown and to New York and Pennsylvania and what have you. And
they started with horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy. They did start with the horse and buggy. And then eventually when it got so big and they had such a calling for it within the ethnic communities, they got a truck, and the truck said Madzun on it, and Madzun means yogurt in Armenian. And it just took off from there. It was a family business. My father and my uncle took it over along with my two aunts, and together they created an incredible company.
And it's funny because a lot of Americans, this was their first time even trying yogurt or even hearing of it. Mm-hmm. It was very popular in Armenia and the ethnic countries in Europe, but in the United States, no one had really tried it before, which is pretty cool. Our family kind of started that wave in the United States.
Right.
And Dannon will claim it.
Dannon will,
but
Colombo was the very first yogurt company in America. And they started with plain whole milk yogurt, and then they went into a fat-free yogurt, low-fat yogurt. These are all the containers from the years. This came out in 1960s. Reader's Digest came out with an article about how yogurt was a cure-all, and it made you live longer. And my grandmother said, look at me, I'm old and I'm still living. So it started with that, and it became a phenomenon. And in the 70s, they went from plain yogurt to flavored yogurt, where they had fruit on the bottom, and these are some examples of some of the fruit flavors they had. My grandfather passed away in 1966. It was a very small company at the time. It was right next to our house, and my father's dream was to make it a national brand. So they moved from Andover to Methuen, Mass. In 1971, and they went from 12 employees to 100 employees overnight. Went from $26,000 to about $1 million, right, really quickly, and from there it just took off. And General Mills bought the company back in the 90s, and they had two brands, Colombo and Yoplait, and they put their concentration on Yoplait because it was more of a national brand. And they dropped the Colombo line back in 2010. Right about that time, my parents were doing a lot of commercials too. So you probably remember Bob Colombosian and Alice Colombosian. They've been on Chronicle. They've been everywhere. and they were talking about the family business.
I grew up eating Colombo yogurt, and it's crazy because as I was preparing for the show, I was just remembering my mom tried to pack like healthy lunches, so I would bring it to school with me, and never in a million years did I imagine growing up to work with the Colombo family. But that's what happened.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are. So Armenians invented yogurt, basically?
Well, they didn't invent yogurt. We brought it. We claim that we brought it to America, which
Okay.
I think is true.
It started with my grandmother when she came over on the boat. She had yogurt, the culture, on her apron, and they used that as a starter for their yogurt. When they came over, they were it was a really sad history for them. They escaped the genocide, or came here to this country, and they were so proud to be eventually American citizens, and they've never forgot their Armenian heritage. But initially, the first people to eat yogurt was Middle Easterners, the Armenians, the Greeks, the Lebanese, the Syrians, and what have you, and that's how we got our start. And then there was an Armenian named David Mugar. His family owned Star Market, and they brought us to the first supermarket, and then from there we were in all the market baskets and the Star Markets and the Shaws and what have you, and it become a national brand after a while.
Pretty soon you could start seeing it in grocery stores in California, which is pretty cool,
Yeah,
And not only did they do
Grandpa
the
grew the
yogurt,
business.
they also had a cheese business too. So they made ricotta cheese, Syrian cheese, Greek cheese, Armenian cheese, and many of you have probably had string cheese before. My grandparents were the first to bring string cheese here also.
To America?
And also the frozen yogurt. There's a Colombo frozen yogurt brand, which my father started here at Faneuil Hall, actually.
Oh, wow.
So we had a shop at
The
Faneuil
machines
Hall at
that
one
supposedly are still there. I don't know if they've changed those machines yet. You can see the Colombo Yogurt logo right on it. Yep.
So it started in Andover at the family farm, basically, and then it expanded to Methuen, but it was all pretty much in the same area,
time.
right?
Merrimack
Yeah.
Valley.
Okay.
Local brand.
And they employed a lot of people from the area too. As a matter of fact, I was going back to real estate. I was at a home inspection last Saturday, and an inspector came in, and afterwards he said to me, "Are you part of the Colombo family?" And I said, "Well, what makes you think so?" He says, "Well, your last name is Colombosian, and I'm from Methuen, and a lot of my relatives used to work at the plant."
Wow.
I said, "Oh, so we haven't been totally forgotten," which
Yeah.
is nice.
So was it important to them to kind of stay in the same area?
Yes, they loved Andover. It was a great community for them.
And my grandfather grew up in Lawrence. Shortly after they moved to Andover, he grew up in that house, and then he built a house right next door to it and never left. That's
Okay.
the house he died in.
And my aunt and uncle lived across the street, so it was like a family compound.
That's amazing. So it all pretty much took place in the same area, even though it went national.
Of course.
So it was your father's idea. He had a bigger vision for it,
Yes, he did. He always wanted to expand the business. So
and he did it.
And he did it.
He did.
He and his brother, John.
So that started with, I guess, it was out of the house, and then once they had the plant, they were off to the races, basically.
Yeah.
It started on my grandmother's stove, her wooden stove, and then from there they expanded to the garage, and then from there they built a small plant in Andover. It was right next to our house. And then my parents, when I first was born, I lived with my grandparents. In fact, Armenian was my first language. I didn't start speaking English till I was about 4. And then as my family started to expand, we moved next door, and my uncle and aunt moved across the street, so it was like a family compound. So it was wonderful growing up in a family business. They worked so hard. They really worked hard, and I think they passed on that work ethic to their children and their grandchildren.
Well, yeah, nobody works harder than the two of you, so that's for sure. Can you still speak Armenian
I can.
fluently?
I can. I understand it, and I used to be able to read and write it. Unfortunately, I've lost it because I have no one really to speak to anymore. But I understand it, and yes, avod hayen ganam chosid.
All
Want to
right.
tell them what that means?
I don't know.
That means I speak Armenian pretty well.
If we
Look
ever
at
go
that.
back to Armenia, you'll be our tour guide.
Well, you'll be the tour guide,
Yeah,
Miles, because
right.
you were in Armenia
Didn't you
last
just
year.
go?
But I can't speak the language. You'll have to talk to everybody for me. Unfortunately.
So you got to go because you were part of I guess this is a little sidetracked, but I would love to talk about this. You were part of the Armenian national basketball team? Or
No, no, absolutely not. I'm not that good at basketball.
Okay.
No, we what we did was a group of us from the Merrimack Valley, Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York. We all together a team of basketball players and went to Armenia to play in these home Minutemen games, which is kind of like the Olympics for amateur Armenians. So we put together a really good basketball team and spent 2 weeks in Armenia playing in a tournament against, Armenians from all over the world, Lebanon, Syria, England, Australia, Iran, everywhere you can think of. We met and played against Armenians from all over the world. It was one of the best experiences of my life, honestly. So
had you ever been before?
that was my first time.
Wow.
So my first time in my home country was us walking around as a team and, people looking at us because we had 6'8", centers and
Right.
massive people that stick out like a sore thumb in Armenia, and it was just really fun to interact with everyone there. And the people are awesome. The food obviously was great, and Karen, we need to go back at some point soon. So
Did you have yogurt?
of course, yeah. You kidding me? It was just as good.
So wait, are there a lot of Armenians in the Merrimack Valley?
There's a good amount, yeah. I mean, the main population, there's a lot of Armenians in Watertown and Belmont.
Okay.
There's a couple really big churches there, but we do have a pretty good gathering up north.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you grew up around it too, even though you were the next generation.
Oh yeah, going to Sunday school every Sunday and trying to learn Armenian and doing my best, but not super fluent, unfortunately. But yeah, every Sunday morning, going to church in Haverhill and Lawrence, and eventually, my grandfather, her father, was involved in building the new church that we've got going on at High Point. So it's been part of my life ever since I was a little baby. It's who I am.
I love it. Were you around for some of the yogurt business, or had that already been sold?
Well, I was around. My grandfather made yogurt up until the day he died.
Really?
But you could still find it in stores when I was younger.
Okay.
I believe it was sold in 1993 to General Mills, right? Mm-hmm. So I was born in '96, but they were still producing it. And then I think around 2010, they really started to wean it off the shelves, and then they replaced it with the Yoplait.
But you used to see the commercials on TV.
Oh, the commercials were on when I was young too. Yeah, I saw them all, and they're on YouTube if you want to check them out. Just Colombo Yogurt.
There's also one of Myles is my nephew, by the way, and my godchild. And there's a video online with Vimeo with us all making string cheese with my father.
That's cool.
So you can make string cheese?
Yes.
Oh, she knows how to make string cheese. The yogurt, we have the recipe for the yogurt, but
Okay.
I don't think anyone's actually attempted it yet. Have you?
I've never attempted it. Your mother may have tried
She
once.
has, I know, but it's still in the family. We can make it whenever we want.
So they sold the business, and then so you never worked in the business, really?
I did,
Oh, you did?
actually. I was a teacher, a special needs teacher, actually, during the year. And in the summers, I would work at Colombo. And even as a young child, my father needed help in the dairy. He would have my sisters and I go down, and we would have to help with the yogurt and the string cheese and what have you. So we kind of grew up in the business. Miles's mother, Robin, worked for Colombo Yogurt for a number of years until
Okay.
she started her family. So the business is all part of us. It's in our blood, and we all loved working together as a family.
Yeah.
And now you still work together as a family, and this
We
is
do.
this is the next generation.
First started real estate. We called ourselves the Colombo Group.
Yes,
So then we came with you guys.
and we're fortunate every day.
So thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for being here. So how did you get into real estate from teaching, and then I guess
Well,
you were
I started out, back in the 70s. I mean, you were either a teacher or a nurse. There were very few women in business. And so I was a teacher, and then from teaching in Derry, New Hampshire, I went to work for the Department of Education, Bureau of Institutional Schools. And from there, I worked at Xerox, and I was very fortunate to have a really good, strong sales training at Xerox. I was there for 8 years. And then from Xerox, went to Panasonic, and I was a district sales manager for New England and Canada. And then branched off to software sales, and in 2000, I was laid off during the dot-com boom. And I started my own business in the Navy Yard called Homestart. And I would help people in the Navy Yard with their businesses. I was a virtual assistant. I worked for a children's book author. I was a nanny. I was a dog walker. I did everything. And from that business, my aunt, who was in real estate up until she was 92 years old, said, "Why don't you come up to New Hampshire? Maybe you'd like real estate." So I went up there and spent a week with them, and then I decided to get my real estate license in 2005, and I've never looked back. It's been wonderful. And started out with Otis and Ahern, and that was bought out by Douglas Elliman, and now I'm with Coldwell Banker and the David Green Group. And Myles can take the story from here, because we've been working together now for close to 5 years. And he can tell you how he decided to go into real estate. It's a wonderful field for us. I can tell you that not only did my aunt work until her 90s, we have relatives all over the country that are in real estate. We had an aunt that worked in Orange County, California, and another one in Seattle, Washington. I have a sister in South Carolina, and cousins that are in real estate. So we
Shout out Laura.
Yes, exactly. Laura Hallahan, greatest real estate agent in New Hampshire.
Absolutely.
Within the last 5 years, Myles graduated from UNH, and from there you can take the story.
Yeah, I mean, I never really planned on real estate. My 4 years in college, I was a psychology major.
Okay.
So it's not really, I guess it applies in a lot of our
It definitely
daily
applies.
dealings. Yeah, absolutely. I didn't realize how much it would, but I got a job in wealth management. I was an intern for a while when I was in college, and no real plans on going into real estate, but I would, on summer break, winter break, I would go help Karen at open houses, because the Navy Yard's a hot area, and she'd need help, organizing people, getting them in, signing them into the open house. So I did that, and I just, after working in a desk and sitting down 9 to 5, I really enjoyed being on my feet, meeting new people every day, which was a big factor in me, deciding to do real estate. But honestly, growing up, she would come over for holidays, and she'd come to the house and just talk all this, horrible examples
stories
of what happens in real estate. I'm like, this sounds horrible. Who would do this for a living and put themselves through that? But
the worst of the worst.
and I think the good outweighs the bad for sure. But yeah, Karen was the reason I got into real estate in the first place, just helping her out on weekends.
The business has really taken over, and we do really well in the Navy Yard. We go everywhere, to be honest. I mean, last year we were in Gloucester and as far south as Norwood. I'm getting a listing on Cape Cod.
Yeah, you are.
But we really concentrate in Charlestown and the Navy Yard. And Myles has been a tremendous help. I couldn't have done it on my own. Both he and his mother, who worked with us for quite a while, have really improved the business in the Navy Yard, and we have quite a presence.
The family business lives on in a different form. Maybe
Sure
not with
does.
yogurt, but we could make yogurt one day.
We
Of
could.
course.
We could. And string cheese. And Yalanchi and Chodek and whatever you want.
You've lived in the Navy Yard for over 35 years.
I moved to Charlestown in 1982, December of 82, and I lived at a place called Constitution Quarters, which was a very new building at the time. It was a rental building. It's now called Paris Landing since 2005. I lived in a studio apartment paying $475 a month. And my parents said, "You're crazy, you're throwing your money out the window, you should buy something." So Myles's mother and I ended up buying a place at Shipway Place in 1985. And his mother,
It was
Nancy actually, my other sister Nancy. And she moved to Chicago, and I've stayed in my original residence at Shipway Place. And most of the business, I've seen the Navy Yard change through the years. I mean, Shipway, then there was Constellation and Flagship and Basilica and Starboard, and there's been so much development in the Navy Yard, and I truly love it, and I'm really passionate about it. And now we have some new news, actually, because my nephew, Myles's brother, Robbie, just bought at Paris Landing, so he will be my neighbor. And Myles.
Are we breaking news on the podcast today?
It's not
Yes.
really news. We have an accepted offer in a building in the Navy Yard. I won't say where yet. It's not done.
You and
but
Riley?
Me and Riley. We have an offer accepted. I was waiting to break it. We just did the inspection yesterday, but we don't
Congratulations.
have anything signed yet. Thank you.
Okay.
But I don't want to say too much.
We won't.
I'm going to be moving hopefully into the Navy Yard in the next few months.
Wow.
So,
Okay, so both of your nephews are going to be your neighbors.
Uh-huh.
Is this the happiest year of your life or what?
I'm so happy. I'm so thrilled.
I mean,
actually.
I grew up going there. When I was a little baby, we'd go to Karen's house and she'd make us dinner. We'd go take the water shuttle over to the North End, and 27 years later,
And
moving in.
what can you say about the Navy Yard,
Yeah.
Myles? Do you love it as much as I do?
I don't think I would have made an offer on a place there if I didn't like it. It's the best. I mean, you can't really beat the location. You got the best views in the entire city right there. You got some good restaurants. People don't think you got good restaurants. You got good transportation into the city, and it's quiet. It's a real neighborhood. It's,
A real community.
kind of like the North End. It's a
Yeah.
real community. you
Oh,
know?
well, I'll walk around with you, and people be like, "Oh, Myles." And I mean, you haven't lived there yet. They know you obviously from working with Karen, and then I think now. I mean, at first it was that you were learning the business, but I think now you're really
Now
more
he's taken
established.
over.
Yeah,
That's the idea.
and now you're going to be a Navy Yard
Yeah.
resident. This is so exciting.
I can't wait. We're very excited. I mean, it's definitely the place for me. I mean, we looked at places, South End, even North End and Somerville, Cambridge, but the Navy Yards felt like home for a while, so it just made sense.
And you get to be with your brother.
No complaints there. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep.
So what's next for this generation of the family business? Just a Navy Yard takeover?
I'd say we already took it over, but we'll continue. We're going to continue to work as hard as we can, and help the people there. That's our main goal, is to help people achieve their real estate goals. That's as simple as it gets. So we're there. If you want to talk about the interest rates, but what's on the market, what the average prices in the Navy are, just give us a call.
Any
and we
price
can talk
point?
it over. Any price point.
We do rentals,
anything.
sales, anywhere from
So
a
that's-
small studio apartment to $5 million listing.
Our goal is to help people there that want to either move there or move out of there. That's our job, and we love it.
And you're never going to retire. You're going to work
No,
till you
I'm
die.
never retired.
Reggie, her boyfriend Reggie, I keep promising him.
Because he's retired.
He's retired, and you need to go on vacations. That's what I'm here for, right? You can lean on me to do showings and open houses, and
Exactly.
it's just
And
not.
there's nobody I could trust more than my nephew, Myles.
Well, thanks. It's just not in your DNA to lay low.
No.
So
She'll
I'm
never
totally to
stop.
get you to take more time off, because
Yes.
you do deserve it. It's been a
do.
long career here, so. And you can trust me, I think, right?
Totally trust you 100%.
Yeah, that's good. It's good to know.
Well, thanks for being here today, guys.
Of course.
I appreciate your time, and I loved learning more about your family. I didn't know most of this, so this has been amazing. Thank you for joining me.
Of course. Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
us.
Yeah.
If you want
And
to
we
learn.
love working for Caldwell Banker and the David Green Group. I had to put a little pitch in there.
Well, we love having you.
Of course.
This is Alexander Salmon. Thank you for being with me today, and we'll see you next time on Main Character, the podcast.